I've got kind of a controversial take. I didn't understand Outer Wilds. I just didn't get it. I completely didn't jive with the idea. Son of a bitch, my light fucking died. Hey everybody, my name is Zach. If you don't know me, that's cool. If you do, thanks. That's also cool. This is my disclaimer paper, because what I'm going to be talking about today requires this, right? This video contains spoilers, major spoilers, for Outer Wilds. Now, I'm going to say this, every spoiler for Outer Wilds is major, and if you're on your Outer Wilds binge right now, you just beat the game, and you're just itching for more. You've heard this before. But I'm going to be talking about the end of the game. I'm going to be talking about puzzles maybe, or at least some very, very big key elements of this game. So if you haven't played it, please, 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 please go play it. Don't watch anything. What is wrong with you? And come back if you want. If not, whatever. But just stop watching. Go play the game. Cool? Cool. That being said, I'm not going to talk about the DLC. I still haven't played it. Fake fan, I know. I think I'm having a similar experience with the DLC that I had with the main game, but we're going to talk about that. So I had a rocky start to Outer Wilds. I really did. I was late to the Outer Wilds train, right? So I started playing this game late November of 2023. Those of you who know the game came out in 2019, right? So a couple years late. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't have any spoilers for me. I just knew you didn't want to know anything about it. So I'm like, easy, done, did it. And I actually bought the game a couple years before November of 2023, but I never played it. I probably played a couple minutes, got bored, and quit. I have a problem. I know. I have a friend who, this actually used to be his office. I took it from him. I have a friend who really loves this game, adores it, has it tattooed on his body. I mean, that's how much he likes this game. And he's like, dude, you gotta play it. And I'm like, shoot, you're right. I own it. Why haven't I played it, right? I don't know why it wasn't on my radar earlier. You know, I was playing games in 2019. I was in high school at the time. I'm kind of glad I didn't know, because I think the problems that I have with it now would have been worse in high school, actually. And when I say problems, I don't mean problems with the game. I mean problems with me. Those of you diehard fans out there, trust me, I get it. The problem was me. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So this game is like the opposite of linear. See, I love to make decisions, and I love open world games as much as the next guy, but this was so open world that the minute you are able to launch your rocket, you can beat the game. You know, you can go anywhere you want, you can see anything you want, and then in 22 minutes the sun will explode. And then you start over. That's the gameplay loop. I already disclaimed, so if you haven't played it, you don't be here. But as you know, this isn't a normal game. There's no level ups or upgrades or weapons or anything like that. It's reading. Outer Wilds is just reading. Pivotal, most important part of the game is reading. You need to read. You need to be able to read to play this game, to progress in this game. So this is what you do. This is what you spend most of the game doing, is reading. Well, for the longest time, I actually had no idea that the game paused by default while you were reading. Totally my fault. It's in your ship as an option right after you pick up your suit, and I had no idea. So I'm speed reading half of the dialogue in this game. Now, you all know this. Dialogue is the game. You kind of need the dialogue to progress. That is Outer Wilds. That's the game. And I blew it. I blew it. The first half of the game, maybe, I'm just I'm not getting it all. So I relied heavily on my computer. Some dialogue I wouldn't read. I'd just skim through. It'd be on my computer. I'd know where to go. That is not how you play this game. I advise against that completely. Don't do that. Bad. I did it wrong. So the first time around, about halfway through the game, my goal is to just beat the game. I'm just trying to beat this thing. Again, not the way you're supposed to do it. This game is 100% the journey and not the destination, and I blew it. I didn't understand. I didn't get the game. And so naturally, playing the game this way hindered my experience. It really did. It was a game. It was like me trying to check off the numbers. You know, like every other game, make the numbers go up, but there are no numbers in this game. No, this game's all about learning and growing. It's reading and exploring. That's the gameplay loop. Read, explore, read, explore. That's it. So a cool thing about Outer Wilds is it is the first and probably only game that has ever had me introspective on the way that I play games. I learned some things about myself playing Outer Wilds. Like, how cool is that? So one of the first things that really had me sort of sink my teeth into this universe, this world, was one, I met Gabbro, and I learned that he was also a part of the time loop. I was like, oh, it's not just me. There's something more here. That was the first thing that felt tangible to me. All the Nomai stuff just felt like history. And that's what it is. It's basically an archaeology game. And so the history, I was like, I love history. You know, as a person, I think history is great. But reading Nomai history just wasn't for me, man. At least initially. So I find out Gabbro's in the time loop. And then afterwards, I find myself in the Ash Twin projection pool. And I see that 3 of the masks, the statues, the masks, are activated. So that's me, Gabbro, and someone else. And this aha moment is kind of what sent me. I was like, okay, well, I got to find out who the third person is, the third entity here that is involved in this whole time loop thing, right? And so the hunt was on. And I'm going to different places, and I'm trying to talk to all the other astronauts. None of them seem to be aware, other than Gabbro and myself. Even Feldspar, who's like the risky guy, the guy who's flying through hoops and bumping into crap, and even he wasn't aware of what was going on. So this really hooked me. I was like, okay, this is it. And really, that story at the core of it is what Outer Wilds is about. It's a game where you make connections based on the things that you've learned and read, and you go from there. It's like a web. It's like that meme where the guy's like got the red stripes, the red string on the board, and he's like connecting all the dots. That's Outer Wilds, except it's already done for you on your computer. So Outer Wilds is not a space game. I'm just going to get it out of the way. Yeah, it's set in space and it has some really heavy themes based on the inevitable heat death of the universe. But that's all pretty surface level when it comes to Outer Wilds. Ultimately, it's a game about discovery and friendship and community and strife and love and death. It's a game about death. And not just your own every 22 minutes, but the Nomai and your solar system and the sun and the universe. It's dying. And you need to accept that. And it's a pretty common theme in the game, as you are stuck in a 22-minute time loop for 99% of it. One really cool moment for me as well was going to the core of the Ash Twin project and pulling out the advanced warp core for the first time. I didn't know what to do with it. I brought it back to the museum, which prompted me with a cool little achievement. But I just kind of sat there, and the sun exploded. And the credits roll, and I knew at the time it wasn't the canon ending, but there was something that brought me a little bit of closure there, knowing that I had ended the time loop, and that could be the ending if I wanted it to be. Thankfully, don't end there. There's more. But wait, there's more. But it was just such a unique moment that you really don't get in other games, where you're in control and this thing you've been combating for a couple hours now, you just pull the plug. I mean, that's... when you play it, that hits pretty hard. The cool thing about this game, and what a lot of people love about like hardcore survival games and just sort of games that are difficult in general, is that this game doesn't hold your hand. There's one optional tutorial, and there's a moment where Hornfels in the observatory, he asks you, where are you going to go? What you going to do? And you don't tell him, or you don't ask him what to do. He asks you what you want to do. This is different from most games that sort of pose it as a what do I do next? In this game, no. They ask you, and that's it. That's your direction. That's the game. From there you go, and you learn. And it's so beautiful. This game doesn't tell you where to go, but asks you where you want to go, which is very unique from a gameplay perspective, and a beautiful way to pose that question that guides the player. The optional tutorial and Hornfels' question are the only pieces of hand-holding in this game. And it is so cool. I mean, it's exciting. Looking back at it, at first I was like, oh, that's cool, whatever. But looking back at it as from a gameplay perspective, from a psychological perspective, it's just such a unique way. There's no hand-holding. You figure it out on your own. There's technically 2 optional tutorials if you include the little RC ship. But yeah, that's it. That's the hand-holding. Now, I will say this lack of hand-holding did hinder my experience personally, but that's just who I am. I did regretfully Google 2 puzzle questions. I Googled how to get to the South Pole on the quantum moon. That's a big one. And I also Googled how to get to the core of Giant's Deep, which is funny because I had found the jellyfish a while ago and just like couldn't quite make it work. So I had to like find out the strat on how to get in there. I was just kind of going into the jellyfish wrong. That one was kind of silly. Didn't really ruin my experience. I already knew what to do. But and I got a couple of hints from my friend who really pushed me to get into this game. And there's a little bit of regret there. There's a tinge of regret. So don't Google anything. Don't watch anything. Play the game. So what's really interesting is that the problems I had with Outer Wilds in the beginning fell on me. Not the team at Mobius, not the developers, not anybody there. It fell on me. See, video games have taught us to look at text as a secondary objective, as something that can be ignored. Skyrim has hundreds of books. All of the Bethesda games have hundreds of books. Bits of dialogue that are cool and important to understand the world, but not important to the game itself, to the core gameplay. And I don't only play Bethesda games. Every game has dialogue you can ignore, except for Outer Wilds. And I'm sure there are a handful of others. But Outer Wilds was so key on that you need that dialogue or you cannot win. You can't stumble your way to victory in this one. You need to read and you need to know what's going on. And that's incredible. It's very unique and something that I think sticks with a lot of players who play this game. In my notes here, I wrote, I treated Outer Wilds as a game to be beaten and not to be experienced, and that it truly taught me to enjoy the journey over the destination. And that's pretty poetic, pretty sweet, but it's true. And it taught me a lot about how I play video games and how I want to change some of that and sort of enjoy them in a deeper, more meaningful way as the art that they can be. So I kind of wrote this in sections. The next section's kind of cute. So I had my girlfriend play the game. She wears glasses, and so I called this section A New Quartet of Eyes. After getting my girlfriend to finally play the game, I realized she picked up things a lot quicker than I did. I think a big part of that is she actually read a lot of the dialogue, but she was very observant in ways that I just found out I wasn't. Little details in the environment that I just missed. It was really cool to see her perspective playing the game. She had a really cool moment in the game after getting invested in the characters and the story. We get to the sun station. She gets to the sun station and she finds out that the Nomai were willing to blow up the sun despite knowing that the Hearthians were there. They'd found us on Timberhearth already. But because of their mission, and yeah, there were some that disagreed, but they ultimately went ahead and built the sun station and tried to blow up the sun to find God. And this miffed my girlfriend. She was upset. She's like, "What the hell, man? You know, you knew we were there. You didn't care enough about us, about life." And that really kind of changed her perspective on things, and I think kind of humanized, I'm using air quotes here, humanized the Nomai more. She gets to the sun station and she's like, "What the hell? You know, like we were there." And I'm like, "Well, it didn't work." And she's like, "But they tried." You know, and that kind of connection with the game was so cool because I didn't have that. I was like, "Oh, that's cool, interesting, whatever." I get to the sun station and was like, "That's neat," you know? It didn't quite click with me in the way it did after really diving into the lore that I have read and really experiencing the game for what it wanted, how it wanted to be experienced. And I'm so glad that I got to watch her play. So after a while, she finally beats the game, and I'm with her every step of the way. And I don't know what it was. I think seeing the game twice really solidified it for me. I cried when she beat the game. It brought me to tears. The first time it didn't. When I beat it, it was like a light, my eyes got a little moist, but no, I was tears rolling down the cheek crying. Like, that's how special this game is. And I think it took me 2 playthroughs to really solidify that meaning for me. I'm gonna read this one verbatim here. I feel compelled to talk about this game's canon non-DLC ending. So if you've made it this far and still for some reason haven't completed the game, please stop watching. If I haven't convinced you with this video, I will outright tell you this game is worth playing in its entirety. So I'm going to talk about the ending. I'm going to read a little here. I know that's lame, but I really want this to come across. That all being said, after finally putting 2 and 2 together, with the advanced warp core and the vessel, I made my way to the eye of the universe. I jumped into the ominous hole and found myself back at the museum in some freaky place between realms. This place was quiet and had subtle changes to the exhibits. I walked upstairs and the star chart was no longer of our star system, but of our galaxy. Except when you go to view it, the observatory is now on top of the eye of the universe. It zooms out to reveal other galaxies that are dying at an alarming rate. The universe is dying. Our universe is dying. And this is the eye's way of telling you. Eventually, you make it to a campfire with Esker sitting there in his rocking chair. He asks you to get the band back together one last time. They and the Nomai you meet on the quantum moon, Solanum, play the song that they have been playing the entire game. But finally, together. Then you leap into the unknown. Everyone gets sent to the far reaches of the universe, and before your very eyes, a big bang. A new universe is born, and the cycle of life begins again 14.3 billion years later. An absolutely gorgeous and thought-provoking way to end a gorgeous and thought-provoking game. Outer Wilds is a work of art. Like most works of art, it confused me at first. I didn't quite get it. Then it sat with me for a little, racked my brain some, read a lot, and it clicked. In my own way, it clicked. Now, I find a lot of joy watching videos on Outer Wilds and seeing what other folks got out of the game, what they think of the story, what they think of the ending, the music, the art, the design. Outer Wilds isn't even really a game. It's an experience. And I feel that it is an experience that every gamer should have at least once. Sorry about reading that last part there. I just felt I really wanted to get those words out properly, and I just didn't have the time to memorize it or set it up. But yeah, that's Outer Wilds to me. It's an incredible and unique video game experience I'll never get to have again. And I will say I haven't beat the DLC. I know, fake fan. I'm working on it. I think I have a similar issue with it that I had with the base game, but I hope one day to return to it. I still know nothing about it, so that's cool, and that helps. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I hope this was enjoyable and that you got to re-experience some of what you love with this game. One really cool thing I got to do that I want to share with you is I went to San Francisco and I got to see and listen to Andrew Prallo play the OST for Outer Wilds and the DLC live with a chamber orchestra with the friend who got me into the game. And that was it. That was an incredibly unique experience. I mean, it was so cool. You know, it was such a unique crowd, a diverse crowd, and I think a lot of us cried that night. I know I did, and it was pretty magical. You know, and you spend hundreds of dollars to travel to California to listen to the guy who made the music for a video game you love. Like I don't think there are many games I do that for, and I don't regret it, and I'd like to do it again. So that all being said, thank you for watching. I hope that this gave you something and that you were able to relive some of that joy you had when you played the game. Now go off and watch a blind playthrough, right? Because that's what we like to do. This is a conversation I'm late to, but one that I'm eager to join. So if you have any thoughts, please tell me about them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and who knows, maybe I'll do more of these. See ya.